Coming up next, an interview with one of the greatest rock voices in history on his biggest hit. He was in a Hall of Fame band and they ruled the 70s and 80s, but as they hit their peak, their stride, the singer wanted to rock, but their guitarist and their band leader, he was writing softer ballads. So this singer brought in a rock song he'd written to possibly put on the band's next album, but his writing partner didn't want to do it, didn't think it was good enough. So in the end, this rock frontman recorded it for his solo album, and lo and behold, it became the most played song of 1987, and actually outdid every single from his band's new album that came out at the same time. Very funny interview coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember playing records on your Fisher-Price record player as a kid, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below and make sure to click the bell so you always get our daily features, our interviews and videos. Also check us out on Patreon. So I'm excited to jump into another episode of our series Revelations, where featured artists go deep on their greatest songs and their greatest albums. You know, in the mid-'80s, after moving audiences with rockers like Feels Like the First Time, Hot Blooded, and Jukebox Hero, Foreigner had their biggest hit, the number one, I Want to Know What Love Is. I want to know what love is. According to the lead singer of the band at the time, Lou Gramm, it pushed the band into a bit of a different direction. Mick Jones was putting the guitar down more and more for his synthesizer, doing more ballads, and that was becoming a part of their current lifeblood as a band. Lou wanted to rock, so one day he brought in a song he'd written called Midnight Blue. He wanted to show it to Mick for their next record. Well, Mick turned it down, so it would actually get put on Lou's first solo album. It became one of the biggest records in 1987, hitting number one on the rock charts, and it was awarded the most played song of the year, outdoing Foreigner's next album, any single from it. Up next, Lou tells the story and shares his hilarious blow-by-blow in trying to sing what he thought was the most syrupy ballad of his band's career at the time, and what Midnight Blue actually means. Let's get into the interview. As we do, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. You know, look, with summer around the corner, you're going to need some sunglasses. If you're in the market for those or another type of frame, whether prescription or even reading glasses, Zenni has got you covered. Get up to 80% off prices you would normally pay for glasses. Just click on the info button right up here to get this outstanding rate. Here's Lou Gramm with this story.
Well, I got to ask you about Midnight Blue, because I got to confess, of all the Foreigner songs, my favorite song that you've ever been a part of, Foreigner included, is Midnight Blue. Such a great message. I love, you know, it's either Cherry Red or Midnight Blue. It's either Cherry Red. Huge hit for you. It was at a time, it was a very strange time, because Foreigner, known as, I mean, we're coming off from talking about It Feels Like the First Time and Hot Blooded. And these rock and roll tracks that people raising their fist and singing along to, anthems to, I mean, they're great songs, but you're starting to do some ballads, you know, I Want to Know What Love Is and things.
Mick, it was a strange time, because we started to work on new songs for the next album, and he didn't pick up his guitar. Everything was on keyboards or piano or a synthesizer or something. And so I didn't say anything. I just went along with it. But at some point I says, Mick, are we going to have any guitars on this album? And he pauses and he goes, oh. He says, you're right. He says, yeah, we will. You know, but he was so enamored with the sounds of the new keyboards that he just got lost in that, you know. I was worried sick that we worked so hard to build up our reputation as a hard rockin' band that in one fell swoop it was going to go down the drain. And I expressed that to him too, you know. And so of course, you know, at some point we did have guitar songs on there on the album, but there was a foreseeing of those more problems to come, because he was still lost in the keyboards on the next album too, you know. I didn't want to be in that kind of band, and I told him so. I says, I says, I loved what we started out as, and for all the albums preceding this. I says, but the change of direction, I says, is something that I don't want to be a part of.
So you did the solo album, and speaking of Bruce Turgon, you guys wrote this together, Midnight Blue.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we played in Black Sheep. We played in Black Sheep together for years.
Tell me about Midnight Blue, how that came together, because what does Cherry Red and what does Midnight Blue represent?
Cherry Red to me is something brash and out in the open, and Midnight Blue is a little more not covert, but moody, Yeah.
Remember hearing you say that everything's going as best as it can go with Cherry Red, but Midnight Blue is more like dark and mysterious. And
yes, that's exactly right. Yep. And I worked hard on those lyrics. They suited the song to a T, I think. I ain't losing track of which way I'm going.
Yeah, the imagery of and the symbolism of what the colors meant. And
I think that the video for it was pretty good too.
Oh yeah, the video was great. And you're kind of letting them know, even though it's a kind of boy-girl's relationship song, but you're letting the girl know that you're going to forge your own path and you're going to split at the moment, you're going to come back. But it was kind of like, I'm going to go my own way, and very unapologetic love song. And I love how you did that.
Thank you.
The lyrics in it really is. It's jukebox poetry, as I call it.
It touched some hearts in not a mushy way, a tough way. I was the trouble boy, looking for double
dare. Oh, I love My Following Days Are Over. My following days are over. Now I just gotta follow through. And that was symbolic of what you were going through in the struggle with Foreigner, kind of changing a little bit of direction.
That's correct. Up to that point, I was writing songs with Mick, but it was pretty much whatever he wanted to write, we wrote, And I would have my song ideas in that bunch too. Jukebox Hero was my idea, And there's other songs sprinkled through that list of songs too. But it was to the point where I felt a shift in our popularity too. When we would play live, all the people who used to be like this now were kind of just watching to see what would happen. And of course they'd get excited when we played the tougher songs, but there seemed to be more and more mid-tempo and softer songs, and I'm sure it was something Mick was going through emotionally or psychologically. After that album, he took his wife on a cruise around the world, where what we should have done is gone right back in the studio and wrote a good rock album. I heard that he would be gone for 7 months, so I went to Atlantic Records and told them that I thought it was the ideal time, given that Mick was away, for me to do my first solo album. And they came up with a budget, and they said, go ahead.
Well, I think if you would have been able to tour it, like you were planning more immensely, I think it would have been huge, because there were several other great songs on there. There should have been a couple more singles to come from it.
I got an offer to open for the entire tour for Steve Miller. I like Steve Miller's stuff. I didn't think it was particularly a good bill. I didn't know if the music went together, the two of us, But his audience embraced me like you wouldn't believe. And he invited me he had a real big, swanky bus, and his wife cooked us a meal on the bus, and we smoked a doobie, and it was fun. He was monkeying around with his guitar, and he was singing the blues, and I would sing the blues with him and stuff like that. It was nice. We had a nice friendship, and I was enjoying myself on the tour. They were making sure we had sound check every show, which was important. Finally, when Mick got back from his world cruise, I get a call just before a show with Steve, and he says, "I heard you released your album," and I says, "Yeah." I says, "A couple months ago." I says, "It's doing good, you know." He says, "And you're on tour also?" I says, "Yeah, I'm opening for Steve Miller." I says, "For the whole tour." He goes, "Well, we have an album to do, and we need to do it now. You better make your decision," he said to me, "and let me know if you're coming back to work on new songs or you're going to stay out with Steve and I have to find another singer." So I cut the tour short and I went back to work with him, you know. But I was not happy because he cut the legs out from the potential of that album.
You tour the album and it pushes the album sales up.
Yes, it did. And there was Heartache. Heartache was on that album too. Heartache done nothing but he also went to Doug Morse, the president of Atlantic Records at that time, and told Doug, "If you push Lou's album and it's successful," he says, "that's the end of Foreigner." He says, I want you to know that." He says, "Lou's been talking about going solo for a long time," which I have not. You know, he says, "If that album's successful, you can kiss Foreigner goodbye." All of a sudden, all the promotion for that album, and I was out on my own, and it did good by itself, even without Atlantic's help.
Yeah, went to number 27 as an album. It was a big album, but it should have been bigger because Midnight Blue was so big.
Yeah. So about 2 years later, I called the Department of Atlantic Records that knows all the statistics about the albums, and I asked what my sales were on that album. And they told me at that point 485,000. So I was 15,000 away from gold.
Very powerful album, and the album cover, very iconic. And I remember buying it, on cassette. Yeah, I mean, Midnight Blue, top 5 hit.
Yes, that's right. It was the most played single of the year, over "Can't Find What I'm Looking For" by U2. And a couple other big songs.
Yeah, U2, Def Leppard. There was tons of songs coming out in '87. It was the most played song.
I've got that page on Billboard framed and in my office.
You know who else loved that song is REM. REM played it on their tour.
Yeah, it was as an encore.
Yes, they love that song. I have a recording of it, a bootleg where Michael Stipe, their lead singer, says, "This is my favorite song right now on the radio. It's a classic, love the lyrics," and then he sang it. And they had a pretty good little version.
Yeah, they did. They made it different, but it was recognizable. And the crowd went crazy for that too.
But tell me about Nils Lofgren, how that came together.
I've been a Nils Lofgren fan for years. He had, when he started doing his own albums back in the 70s, I think his first album had a song titled "You're the Wait I've Been Waiting For." It was a tough attitude rockin' song, and his style of playing and his singing too were just so cool, and so I've been a fan for a long time. When Midnight Blue was ready to be recorded, Bruce Turgan, my bass player, is a great rhythm player too. So he played the tough chords, dang, 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 dang. He played those, but Nils did all the other playing around it and did the dang 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 dang. So his contribution was immense, and we was those sessions that we became fast friends.
And of course, this is the time where he's joining the E Street Band, and
yeah, it was all happening for him too.
Also, I always heard a rumor that you had offered the song to Foreigner, and Mick turned it down. Is that true?
That's true. Matter of fact, when Foreigner was getting ready to do, it's I can't remember which album, not sure which album it was, but we were gathering song ideas from within the band, and that Midnight Blue idea was mine, but I couldn't play it. I played it on piano. And then when Bruce and I got together, he found the right voicings on the guitar for it, and that made it for me. It was totally a guitar song. Yeah, I had it in mind for a solo album, but I thought my solo album was still a ways away, Bruce and I came to a Foreigner rehearsal, and I told Mick I had an idea, and so Bruce on acoustic guitar and me just singing. That's all it was. Well, we played him the demo, which was electric, and then we played him the song acoustically, so he could actually hear everything,
Let it be a shame, 'cause I'm the one who can feel the sun right in the point.
He had a funny look on his face, and I wasn't sure if he liked it or disliked it. Then he asked Bruce to show him the chords, because Bruce also is very good at chord inversions, just like Mick. Mick was trying to figure out Bruce's chord inversions, and he got them, but when he started playing the riff over and over again, he changed it to something that he liked. And for me, that blew it for me, because as usual, he wouldn't take my idea verbatim. He had to mess with it, He monkeyed around with it, and it didn't sound like Midnight Blue anymore. So I kind of just sat there, and he looked at me. He goes, "I don't know, Lou. I don't know if that's a good song for us." And I was relieved.
It was a bigger hit than the singles off of Inside Information, because it was during the time that you were doing Inside Information. I Don't Want to Live Without You was, one of the singles, and I mean, good song, but again, ballad.
And very, very sappy, Yeah. I don't mind doing a ballad if it's a rock ballad. This wasn't even rock.
I don't want to live without you.
This could have been Tony Bennett or Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. It didn't sound like the Foreigner of the past.
No, so he knew I didn't like the song, and when I would play around singing it, and I was singing it like, I don't want to live, like Dean Martin. I don't want to live without you, and it would irritate the hell out of him when I did that. So when I finally got to sing it for real, I started doing that again, and he went through the roof.
Yeah.
So I took that kind of attitude off it and sang it relatively straight.
I could never live without you.
But I didn't embellish it at all. I sang it, and I think I sang it in about an hour and a quarter, and I went home that day. I just went home. I left, and we on that whole album we wrote about 2, maybe 3 songs together. Everything else was him.
You showed your independence with Ready or Not, and Midnight Blue was such a great rocker, and it's still a song that's played on radio all the time. And you think about Inside Information, Say You Will. I mean, your vocal performance on Say You Will is phenomenal. I love that song.
Thank you. I like the song too.
Yeah, it's a great song.
I can't think of too many other songs that do it for me on that album.
Say you will be my delight.
But Midnight Blue is bigger than any of the singles off of Inside Information. That's the one people remember is Midnight Blue.
I think Midnight Blue is the most underappreciated song of 1987. One of the best of the 80s for sure. What do you think? Make sure to leave us a comment about this amazing song. What are your memories of Midnight Blue, about Lou's solo career? What would it have sounded like as a Foreigner song? What's your take? Let's get it. Also, check us out. If you like the channel, we invite you to subscribe. We would love to have you as part of our community. We do this all the time. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.